Hello, it's Paul Bergin again from the Mars Hill blog, which you can find at www.paulbergin, paulburgin.blogspot.co.uk. Do forgive me, I've got a slight cold, and slightly bunged up, but I'll press on regardless. Today, continuing my series of political heroes of mine, how I feel they change society. And today I picked another US president, another Republican, and I'm not by nature, if I were an American, a Republican. But Theodore Roosevelt, the 25th, sorry, I nearly said 25th US president, he was the 25th US vice president, but he was the 26th US president from 1901 to 1909. And he was born in 1858. He was a New Yorker. He came from the prestigious family of Dutch origin. He was fifth cousin to one of his successors, Franklin D. Roosevelt, who was a Democrat. There's a photograph of him at the age of 7. I think the first time you see Roosevelt involved in anything like politics. And it's the procession of Abraham Lincoln's funeral cortege, and I think it's in Washington. And as it passes a house, leaning out the window as a sport watching Lincoln's coffin go past is a small boy. That boy was Theodore Roosevelt. And he was someone who was pretty much a military person. He led the charge at San Juan Hill during the US war with Spain in Cuba in 1898, and was a keen strategist. He was also during the late 1890s Assistant Secretary to the Navy. But he had a slightly traumatic private life. His first wife died after giving birth to their daughter. He married again and had several children, but he really plunged into the abyss of depression on the death of his first wife. But somehow he found the strength to go on, and was such a key political figure that in 1900 his enemies within the Republican Party persuaded McKinley to make him his running mate, thinking that as vice president, Roosevelt would be stuck for several years, he could do nothing. And that's exactly what happened. Roosevelt became vice president in 1901. William McKinley took on his second term, but then McKinley was assassinated that September, and Theodore Roosevelt became the 26th US president. And boy, did in the 7.5 years, he was US president till March 1909, finishing much of McKinley's second term and having his own term of office from 1905. He really hit the ground running. He was a big conservationist. This is one of the things I like about Teddy Roosevelt. He established many of the national parks in Canada, etc. He helped increase trade, is very much involved in the construction of the Panama Canal. In some ways, he was pretty much an American imperialist in a way no previous US president was, and kind of defined US foreign policy in that he expanded the Navy, etc. But he did help broker the end of the Russo-Japanese War, which got him the Nobel Peace Prize. And he did show an incredible amount of not just strength, but also compassion. And this is what I, in summing up, like about Theodore Roosevelt, in that he did a lot for American conservation, but he also, whilst he was an imperialist in his foreign policy, he was also very good at breaking up other potential conflicts. I do almost wonder whether World War I would have accelerated to how it did if he had been US President during that time. Sadly, he died young. He had poor health in his last decade and died just 2 months after the end of the First World War. But one of the great US presidents, and it's not for nothing his face is on Mount Rushmore.